We're recording? I think we're recording. Anyways, everyone, it's Gordon Einstein, your favorite, or at least most loudmouth crypto attorney based here in Dubai. And this time, I'm very happy to be interviewing a long-term friend, dare I say, of mine, Vit, who has forbidden me from pronouncing his last name, but I'm sure he'll share it with us. The impresario, the revolutionary, the artist, whatever the right word is, behind Liberland. Vit, welcome on the show. How are you today?
Hey, great to see you, Gordon. And it's always lovely to be in touch with you.
Likewise, I appreciate it. I think you and I met, if I remember correctly, it was in Gibraltar at D10E.
Yes, quite a few years back, like 7 years ago or 6 years ago. That was.
Yeah, that was a good event, and I remember meeting you, and I think we were at an English pub in Gibraltar, and I started hearing this whole idea. I'm like, okay, this is interesting, because as a lawyer, this idea of like this autonomous new country is fascinating. We'll go into your background in a minute, but I always like to give the audience sort of the meat up front. So you're known for, and I think your main product is Liberland. Is that correct?
Yes, that's a startup country in Balkans.
Okay, let's dive deep. More detail. Startup country in Balkans. What I think every country in the Balkans is a startup country, but what do you mean?
Yeah, that's kind of a good region to start your countries. They call it Balkanizacja. But what we did actually in 2015, we were looking quite diligently at where to start a new country, and we were looking at all these territories that had a terra nullius status, meaning that were not claimed by any other country, and there is very few left. only a couple of them still, and one piece of Antarctica is still unclaimed but under special international treaty. Then there is a couple places. There is this place between Egypt and Sudan, which I was looking into as well, and there was a lot of people that were claiming it more for fun than for any serious business. And then in 2015, in very early, I think it was January, we came across this territory between Serbia and Croatia, which was not claimed by either Croatia nor Serbia, which was very, very special place. And we were actually looking how to start a new country, not just for the sake of starting a new country, but really to implement and build new model for the statehood. We believe that the ways we're running our societies is flawed in many ways, and we have so much improvement on the technological side, but there was very little improvement on the way that the countries are governed. So I felt this urgency to really stop working on anything else and literally just go into founding a new country and use the latest technologies and the latest constitutional ideas that have learned from the past to build a new country. And that was the time when we just took the flag and went there and stick it there, and the rest of the thing is history. It's 9 years of adventures, and it's 9 years also of hard work, working on constitution, working on our blockchain governance, working on diplomacy. It's of course a big endeavor to start a new country, but I think we're on a fairly good track with that.
Interesting. Now, I gotta ask, how in God's name, in the middle of Europe, is there a piece of unclaimed land?
Well, it's the interesting thing is that the status has not changed. Like, we still don't have any sovereign country claiming us.
How was there? How did you luck out? What the heck happened that this piece of land wasn't claimed by either of those two countries?
Well, so what happened historically was that the path of the Danube has changed, and that doesn't change the borders. But so in a way, what Croatia says in this border dispute is right, and we are on the side. We're basically on the side of both Croatia and Serbia in the dispute, because both countries are claiming some pieces of land and some of their claims overlap. But Liberland is special because their claims don't overlap, meaning that, again, neither Croatia nor Serbia in this border dispute claims this particular piece of land. And again, like we believe that what Croatia says that is right, and what Serbia says also in this border dispute is right. That's how the space Liberland itself was created. So Croatia actually has 10 times bigger size of pockets of land on the Serbian side of the river, but they can never claim Liberland if they want to maintain the claim on these pockets on the other side.
That's
And that's
interesting.
quite
They have a
quite
little bit of
important.
dilemma where if they go ahead and claim those, they're acknowledging that you're not it.
Yes, well, if they ever claimed Liberland, they would lose the claim to 10 times bigger territory on the other side of the river. But of course, no matter how you look at it, like creation of Liberland is the best resolution for this border dispute. It's simply the one that creates more prosperity for both countries, for both Croatia and Serbia. It really will help the impoverished region, which, yes, both countries actually consider this area as a special need area. Croatia already gave some tax exemption in the area of Vukovar, which is nearby. This area on the Croatian side was hit by the war, and people are leaving. There was 500,000 people that left the area in last 15 years, most of them going to Germany for better wages. And with Liberland, we've got 800,000 people that applied to be citizens of a 7 square kilometer country. Like, can you imagine? We actually had bigger immigration than the whole United States for at least 1 month. That tells you something.
Bigger legal immigration.
Yeah.
Did I hear you correctly that you had the idea for Liberland before you had a location for Liberland? Like you had the concept first and then found the location?
Yeah, we were looking for the piece of land after we had the concept. So the initial concept was quite simple. We really wanted to build a country for the righteous people to prosper without unnecessary burden of taxes and too much regulations. And yes, I actually believe it's quite important, that we do something about it, because the amount of destruction created through stupid laws and too much taxes is enormous. Just one example, which I like to use, like European Commission, it's in its own analysis, it says that they're slowing down the economic growth with the EU regulations by 4% in the nation states. Every year, right? 4%. But you say, okay, 4% is not that bad. But if you know how exponential growth works, and if you combine this 4% over the time of 20 years, that means that half of European economy gets wiped out because of the EU regulations. And it's actually the same effect like you would drop an atomic bomb on half of the continent every 20 years. But just people don't see that. Right? They don't see the enormous destruction. And this is just the EU regulations. We're not talking about the national regulations, which probably are another 5 to 8% in total, because free society would not grow at the rate of 0.5%. A free society usually grows somewhere between 10 to 20% a year. And we should really open that up. We should make, especially in Europe, a place where such a growth is possible, and you will see how much a new Hong Kong or new Singapore like entity, how much prosperity it would unleash in next 20 years. We just need a little bit more support, diplomatic support, and a little bit more, I would say, material support from our community to get things rolling this year.
And does anyone live? Does Liberland have any permanent resident?
Yes, of course. Right now, there is a bunch of people. There is construction workers. We're actually building quite fast. These days, we're building a 3 resort, and I hope there will be more than 100 people by the end of the summer. So we are actually organizing 2 bigger events. One is for 500 people in the middle of summer, and I hope maybe 40 people from that will stay. And then we are organizing a Liverpulco, which is in collaboration with Anarchopulco in Mexico.
Sure.
And that should bring another 1,000 people. And I hope 50 to 60 people will permanently stay. Of course, it's not that easy to permanently reallocate people to new country, especially if the infrastructure is under construction. But I believe the physical immigration will also kick off, not just the one that is on the paper or online, and we get things rolling this year.
And what's the ideal population size of Liberland? living
Well, the
there.
fun part is if we fit everybody, all 700,000 people there, we would be 5 times more overpopulated than Macau. So we would be the most overpopulated country on the whole planet. Uh, so ideal size would be somewhere between, I like to say 44,000, like in the Bible, but that literally comes from the same the population density like Monaco.
Mhm.
So we are 3 times bigger than Monaco. Monaco has roughly 30,000 people living there. So between 90 and 140,000, I would say, is the ideal population.
Really? Okay, so you're not the smallest country out there.
No, of course not. Monaco is 3 times smaller. Gibraltar is roughly the same size, actually, and Vatican is 10 times smaller than Liberland.
Really? Okay, so if you and the Vatican went to war, you would win.
I'm not sure about that one. Vatican is fairly powerful,
Okay.
but we're very peaceful, loving country. We were just taking care of our business and protecting ourselves. We're not expansionists. We might conquer the world by ideas, but not by military force.
Nice. Now you're obviously not the first person to have the idea of forming a country. And I remember, I think we talked about it. I understand it's different, but I remember talking about Sealand with you and some of these early stabs at it, which weren't successful in the long run. What makes you different? And it's also interesting to me that the time you came up with this idea is around the time that this other stuff was happening, and you've survived, and they've gone by the wayside. So maybe you can explore.
Yeah, no, we're serious. Like, I still don't have anything better to do than start a country. Um, so I think it's a right like mission to do again for multiple reasons, which I already mentioned. And of course, with the community of 800,000 people like we do, we're doing something right. Like we're getting a big ball rolling of the support for Liberland. And right now, you can see that on exchanges also, and you can see that that the power actually of the whole community is being combined through the tokenomics model that the whole country has, which I think is quite solid. We have two tokens. One of them is currency, and the other one is share. And the idea of Liberland is that basically taxes are voluntary. Nobody pushes you to pay taxes. You don't go to jail if you don't pay taxes. But there is one thing which is even better than that. So whenever you pay taxes, you become the shareholder of the country, which I think is a substantial improvement, conceptual improvement to other countries, right? So, and like kind of world is sleeping, but when it's going to wake up to that concept, we will see probably a huge rise for support of Liberland. And now it's possible, like anybody around the world can anonymously support Liberland by simply buying into its share, which is Liberland Merit or Liberland Dollar. And we're just about to launch on one of the biggest crypto exchanges in the world, MEXC. And like we are different, right? Like there is a huge substance behind Liberland. It's a first ever tokenized country, a sovereign state. And of course, like the path itself is not simple, but the concept I think is very powerful, and the world just needs to wake up to that concept.
It's fascinating. Okay, so we started to touch on it, but now let's really dive in. So there's the geographical space of the country, and then there's the sort of the model you had in your brain for the features and benefits, the governance, the nature of that society, and then you decide to plant it in this particular place. But what is your conception of Nation 2.0? What is this thing that you're building?
Well, there are three elements, I would say. One of them that you really just stick to the mold of the state. And that means taking care of justice, security, diplomacy, and leave the rest to free markets, right? That's very important. I think that's the concept that the founding fathers had. The state has no business in things like education, hospitals. We just leave the private sector to take care of that. We don't want to compete with that because state is a special entity, right? It has a monopoly over violence. And whenever you basically give the state power to go into other fields, it always tries to use that monopoly to outcompete its competition by, for example, putting up regulations, etc. So it's much better to have a free market competing in areas like education and medical system, or we don't even regulate the marriages. That's done also by private business and by churches, right? So that's one of the things. We keep the state very small, very much focused on taking care of security, justice, diplomacy, and that's it. And then the other element is, as I mentioned, the fact that Liberland is a corporate-like structure, but it's also republic. And it's also democracy, but it also is a little bit of monarchy in a way. We try to combine the best elements of each of these systems. So, for example, the majority of citizens, one person, one vote, can veto any decisions by government, by the Congress, and that's, I think it's quite important. That's something that we have learned from Switzerland. But we are a republic because, again, the state is very much limited. So the republican element is there. But we're also a bit of a corporation because the more merits you have, the bigger is your vote in the referendum, which decides about new laws, which I think is also a fairly good system because you can see that corporations are usually quite efficient in establishing the regulations itself. So that's important element. And we're also a little bit of monarchy because then there is this Senate, which is kind of House of Lords of Liberland, which doesn't have a strong power, but its main power is can also veto the decisions by Congress. So all these elements, I think, create a very powerful constitutional setup. And what is also important that it's all on blockchain. So there is no meddling with budgeting. There is no meddling with elections. All these things are run hyper efficiently on a public ledger, on a blockchain, which I believe the best use case for blockchain, whatever you can think of it, and of course Bitcoin is a great use case for money. But the ultimate use case for the blockchain is the governance of a nation state. Where again you can create the most prosperity in the shortest possible time. So that's quite important. And I would say there is a third element, which I think is also quite interesting, is that we are trying to even put competition into things like police or justice system. So in Liberland there is a market for security. We just launched our mobile app where anybody can become policeman, and there is always a bidding auction for any kind of security incident inside of Liberland. And the state does give a flat fee for people taking care of security incidents. So we are taking care of the security, but it doesn't mean that you cannot offer better price or for the service, or you can simply outbid the other performers. So we are even implementing markets in the areas like security or justice, where we are building a market for judges, and again, putting everything on blockchain. So we're really trying to utilize the latest technology and the smartest idea how to run a nation state and put it into one bundle, and of course build a country with it. But the next step is to sell that idea to other nation states, and we've been quite successful actually in that, I would say already. For example, Javier Milei, which is just about to arrive to Prague right now.
This is Argentina's president, yes?
Argentina's president, yes. He was running his campaign on a platform that he is a general ANCAP from Liberland coming to fix Argentina. Right? And we never met. He never came to Liberland, but the concept itself, I would say, is so powerful that people are becoming presidents of other countries on the basis that they are Liberlanders coming to fix the crazy bureaucratic and tax environments in other countries.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty amazing. Which is leading into there's a lot to circle back there and a lot to cover. But what is it? Do you need diplomatic recognition from other countries and organizations? Are you looking?
No, actually, the Montevideo criteria about the statehood actually specifically mention that the state or the country is country even without recognition by other countries. It just needs to fulfill the Montevideo criteria. It has to have population. It has to have some to enter into diplomatic relation. It has to have control over the territory, and it has to find borders. And all of these things Liberland is already fulfilling. Even after the formation of Liberland, there was this Chicago Journal of International Law article about Liberland, which was very open about the fact that Liberland already followed these Montevideo criteria from the early days of the formation. But right now the situation has changed. We had hard times accessing Liberland. People used to be arrested on the borders for no reason, just for trying to get to Liberland. And we have fixed that. So Liberland is settled from 6th of August 2013. So that's a very important date for us because, well, we've got a permanent settlement. Yeah, wow.
Really?
Nice.
Like a 6.
So that was a nice gift. Thank you for that.
Sure.
So since that time, and it's 300, I would say how many? Something like 320 days. So Liberland is settled, permanently settled for almost a year, which is quite important to fulfill the Montevideo criteria. We're making sure that people are living there permanently, and we are building houses now. We're building a resort, treehouse resort, and we're getting ready. We're not too much outspoken about it because the situation is always fragile in some respect, but yes, we are planning a large-scale development of the country later this year. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And even though we still have some logistics problems to get through the borders from Croatia with the machinery, which we need to solve, and I'm actually just about to solve that by buying some special boats that will help us to bring bigger machinery to Liberland. But we are very close to the major development in Liberland, and I'm quite grateful for it. Right, like think about it. For 8 years we couldn't access Liberland, and then finally we got the access, and now things are developing in a very positive way. While we are actually finishing the governance as we speak, the Congress, the first Congress elections, will happen on 6th and 7th of July. So. Yeah, the hardcore campaign starts on 4th of July for the Independence Day, and then we were running up to select the first management body of Liberland, and I will still keep some powers in the system to help the first elected Congress, but I believe it's going to be a lot of fun. Very interesting people are already applying to become congressmen to help us. We've got some famous producers from Hollywood. We've got former members of European Parliament. Former vice prime minister is also considering running from Slovakia. So even like some political elites are considering becoming part of our political system at this stage.
It's interesting. What's their motivation?
I think, they really feel that what we are doing is revolutionary in some way, and they have a sympathy for that, and they feel that it's very difficult to change the system from within. You really, like, the major changes are not coming from within; they're coming from outside of the system. And this is exactly what Liberland is bringing. Like, it's going to lead by example. It's not going to try to fight some political fight in US or in Germany or somewhere else. It's coming from outside and showing that other ways of running a country are possible, and that they might be more efficient and bringing more prosperity and happiness to its citizens.
Interesting. And then, as a born European, what's your feeling towards the EU? And are you disappointed with the direction of the EU?
Well, I don't comment on EU in general.
Well, you have to,
of
because
course.
I'm interviewing you and I asked you a direct question. So comment as much as you can, just as a private citizen.
No, like, of course, the EU is trying to synchronize the taxes on some higher level. It's bringing at least 500,000 new pages of regulations, and while it sometimes brings more liberalization to, for example, energy markets, and sometimes removes some stupid nation regulation in general, it's bringing a lot of more bureaucracy and it's also pushing for higher taxes. So yes, I mean, it's fair to say that Liberland is kind of antithesis to the world government, which EU is a seat of. And we know very well that the competition is very important among the nation states, because if you lose that competition, you basically have nowhere to run away to, right? Like when states are becoming more and more authoritarian, when they are becoming more and more intrusive into people's privacy, when they try to take more and more taxes and they try to regulate every single aspect of your life, where are you going to run to if the world is run by world government, right? So I think it's very important that we actually open the space up in the minds of people, that the competition among the nation state is very important, and that the formation of new countries is also possible. So yes, in the sense, we're also breaking the paradigm, right? I think that's the biggest challenge that is ahead of us. But the fun part is we don't care about how difficult it is. We are just doing it, and it's working. So that's the fun part about Liberland.
That's a very can-do point of view. What is it like dealing with, or do you deal with? And I know you touched on this a little bit, but like in more depth, dealing with the two bordering countries. Like, do you talk to the police? Do you talk to the government, or is it totally informal?
We've got I would say reasonable neutral relations with Serbia. They watch us very closely, and they already stated at the very beginning, actually only 11 days after formation Liberland, they don't mind creation of Liberland, and it was not formed on the territory of Serbia. I wish we got the same statement from Croatia. It would solve a lot of problems and get things rolling much faster. But what I feel that Croatia is literally mentoring us to the nation statehood. And there are also people that are kind of fans, but they're telling us, like, guys, like, you really need to act like country in all of the aspects before becoming country. So sometimes they train us. Like, we had a bunch of policemen coming to steal our bikes in Liberland the other day. And it's a good training for our justice system, and good training for our diplomacy. And but I'm very grateful about, let's say, I would say it's a kind of a very soft conflict that we have with Croatia right now, and it's helping us to get things rolling on our end. Don't be a soft country. I mean, meaning like small government doesn't mean that we are soft government. We really are using it to form our security system, to finalize our justice system, and get ready for being able to handle also major immigration in Liberland, right? Like, just think about it. Like, you are taking a lot of responsibility for a lot of people when they move into Liberland. And of course, if there is not a system of justice and system of security properly working in place before they come, you are in trouble. And from that perspective, like, Croatia is telling us, whoa, guys, get your stuff in order. You have to learn how to deal with us before you can handle your own immigration. And in a sense, I feel they're right. Like, it's something which, again, like, the fact that they are putting challenging ahead of us makes us more stronger and ready to be able to handle our affairs in the next round.
I got it. It's a way of looking at it. What's besides for just acting as maybe a role model, is there any benefit to Serbia and Croatia by having you there?
Of course, like, if we unleash the full potential of Liberland, we will, no matter what, we will get suppliers from both countries, and we will raise the economic growth. Our economists have put a serious study together, and we will raise their economic growth by 1 percentage point every year. Both countries will grow 1% with the formation of Liberland. It's just like Shenzhen next to Hong Kong, right? You will see enormous prosperity all around Liberland, and both countries will benefit in general.
Do you think Liberland's gonna have suburbs in Croatia and Serbia?
Of course, it's already happening. We just bought yesterday 3 more houses, just for the logistics purposes. So it's happening. Liberlanders are coming to colonize the places which were abandoned by Croatians as they left to Germany. Many houses were left, and we are just fixing them. We just put up a roof on one of them yesterday, so it's already happening. Like, people are moving physically to Liberland, and there is a huge potential for economic growth in the whole region just because of Liberland already.
You know what's interesting? Just to throw this out here, and maybe you'll run with this. I could see an interesting scenario where Liberland was sort of the nucleus of a two-part free zone, one on the Serbian side, one on the Croatian side, and just no tariffs between them so long as things are happening within that cell. That'd be an interesting little model where Liberland is sort of like the city of London, managing that relationship a little bit. And maybe that would benefit both countries a lot.
Yeah. And there is interesting element to it. We're also planning to actually do something more on the other side of the river. Right now we have a nice resort called the Ark on the other side of the river. But we're planning some more moves on that end, and I think that will be fun to do. We will hear a little. I cannot tell you more about that, but I can invite you to the Floating Man Festival. It would be lovely to have you there as a speaker. It's actually on
and MC, I would imagine.
Yes. That would be lovely.
Okay. Well, now you're talking. Okay, interesting. Wow, you got a lot going on. Okay, so you touched on it several times, but let's go a little bit deeper. It sounds like blockchain is deeply woven into even your initial conception of Liberland, and of course you have these two currencies. Let's just go step by step. Which blockchain are you using, or does that question apply?
We have used Substrate, so the same base code Polkadot uses. We are using that base code, but there has been 2 years of development into that with the team of 8 developers. So we did quite a lot of changes in order to make sure that we fulfill all the elements of the nation requirements that this blockchain could have. So the constitution is quite simple in a way, but of course it required major changes in the infrastructure of the creating of consensus. But we have validators. Citizens can become validators, just like on Polkadot. Everybody that has Liberland dollars is as a nominator if they want to stake. So the security is done by our ecosystem of Liberland dollars, but the voting and everything else is done on top of Liberland merit, which I think is quite interesting, that these two tokens are there, and the currency is already being listed on multiple exchanges globally. It was just launched on Uniswap, PolkaSwap, and we're going to MEXC again this Thursday already. So anybody can support Liberland, but also can benefit from being part of it. And the Liberland merit is going to go on exchanges later this year. It already is trading on some decentralized exchanges if you dig deeper into it, but we are trying to slow that element down for multiple reasons, and we are still making sure that the launch of Liberland dollar will be also success when we introduce it to global markets now. So it's fun, and again, like when the world is slowly waking up to the fact that we're putting these things like a sovereign, literally a token that represents sovereign territory on markets. We are seeing that the crypto world is really into it, and it makes sense, right? Because this is the next evolution of the mankind in process.
This is really interesting. I mean, you're existing in a physical world and the virtual online world, and tying the two together. It's kind of reconceptualizing the idea of a nation and of citizenship deeply. Does Liberland have a written constitution, or is it a smart contract constitution, or something else?
It's both, right? The smart contract is described by written constitution. I would say
described by
90% of the mechanics of voting and stuff are actually done as a smart contract. 10% are still in some way written form, but they're not the substantial parts, right? The all that is important is a smart contract, and that makes things interesting because, of course, it really makes the transparency as high as possible, but also interesting from the point of view that an AI agent, if is able to pass the citizenship test, can become a citizen or congressman in Liberland, right? And they can just plug into the whole system, which will make, I think, it will be quite funny to see that happening soon.
That sounds dangerous.
Well, I think, no matter what you think about it, it's still the future. But it really like merges
that is an answer, but that doesn't mean you have to do it first, or not let other people take the arrows. Can an AI become a citizen now?
Well, technically, yes, if it applies for the citizenship, pays the required amount. And like if somebody created an agent that would be able to do it, why not?
Well, I can think of a couple reasons why not. Maybe civilization shouldn't exist for the benefit of humans.
Well, of course, like these AI agents are mostly created in order to help humans. So the idea, for example, is that I could still remain as a member, like a member of the society, even after I'm no longer here. I could literally leave my agent. That would be a model of everything that I have ever written or said to the media, and it could still remain a active agent of the system, right? So the spirit of the
I'm sure in your case that's awesome, but I'm kind of glad that some people have gone off this planet and let new generations take over.
Of course, but that doesn't mean that. I mean, we're a democracy, right, or republic, and that doesn't mean that that the formation of new opinions is not good to mix all the new ideas together. Also, sometimes, right? So, I mean, of course, it's just an interesting concept, maybe kind of new for you, but I think it's going to happen at some point. Actually, that some congressmen, for me, for example, for me, and this is a difficult topic for me as well, but to have somebody to like a heir to the whole political system, it's at some point, if and I'm working hard on it, but for example, if I decided to leave my merits and some of the political influence to my kids, I really want to make sure that they are fully following what were the original ideas of Liberland, right? And sometimes this is the difficult part. But so, for example, I could divide my merits and political influence in Liberland between my kids and some AI agent that would still keep an eye on the system. But of course, my influence over the political system over the time is smaller and smaller. And I wanted to do it in that way as well. So it's not like there will be some ghost of Liberland running around and still dictating everybody how to create a country. No, it's going to have a smaller and smaller vote, unless it was substantially contributing to the development of Liberland over the time as well. I cannot say what the agent will do, but it's future. You cannot stop it. You can only. Sorry.
This is a fascinating topic.
Yeah, it is. And to be honest with you, I'm also not like having this like completely thought through. But this is gonna happen, and well, actually, let me just tie back to some ideas that I had in Davos this spring as well, where we were talking about singularity and we were talking about the fact that the big companies are literally like trying to scare the world into giving them monopoly over the development. But the true answer is also free markets, like having multiple companies, as many as possible, developed a super powerful AI. So the world is kind of in balance because the development of that superhuman AI is, and the worst thing that can happen is that the governments will try to monopolize it or give special licenses to just a few companies that will keep that. And again, the answer is completely the opposite. Really open it up as much as possible in order for these super intelligent AIs to be able to keep each other basically of the possibility to take over the world. That's the idea, I would say.
I wonder if there's room for a robust data center in Liberland.
Of course it is. Of course it is. And we do have already a small one in the basement there in the center of Liberland on the Jefferson Square. I'm just buying some extra power batteries right now, or just asking somebody to do it and bring it to Liberland tomorrow. So it's happening. It's on a very micro scale right now, but it's you caught us at I would say at the beginning of the trend.
Well, I love it. It's good. It's good we're talking. Usually these interviews or discussions that are triggered for a sequence of events. I don't know which ones, but it always seems to happen. Wow, there's a lot to cover here. So would you describe Liberland as a DAO?
Yes, we are a DAO, a decentralized autonomous government. I would say
DAG.
DAG.
Interesting. And was that did the concept of a DAO even exist when you were first conceptualizing the country, or did these ideas kind of merge together?
I mean, it was obvious it's going to be created. Of course, I was watching the first DAO failure very eagerly, and I was waiting for the technology to mature, and just was looking into the best one to plug into as soon as it was there. And yes, of course, there was this big debate if we should be the EVM compatible, basically using some Ethereum ideas, but the Ethereum wasn't ready for that. It wasn't proof of stake, which I was thinking is substantial for Liberland itself. We don't want to have a mining system. We really want to have proof of stake system from beginning. And Polkadot still seems to be one of the leaders, and the community is most open to collaboration and innovation. We got some grants from them as well, from Parity. So I'm quite grateful for that. And it seems like the technology that will prevail for some time. And Rust also seems to be one of the better languages that is out there that might have a brighter future than the other ones.
Interesting. It's fascinating. So, wow, and then you kind of alluded to before, there's the Argentinian president. You're meeting with him, or what's going on there?
Well, there is a chance that we will meet today, but the most important meeting should happen in Las Vegas. We're on the stage right after each other in 14 days for Freedom Fest. That's like one of the biggest things that are happening in the world, and in terms of freedom movements. So I'm quite excited that we got the stage there, and that we might be able to meet there. He's in Prague. He's getting one of the awards from one of friends of mine's, Professor Shima, who is actually the dean at the university where I studied. So world is small, and we will see if we will meet tonight or not. But we are using this opportunity to open the representative office in Prague, which is a very nice place right next to the foreign ministry. And we're expecting quite a few media there, quite a few political people, as well as diplomats.
So couple of ambassadors. You're wow, a representative office in one of your neighboring countries. That's one step away from being a consulate, right? You're kind of edging up on it.
Yes, well, we've got a similar status in many countries like Taiwan has right now. I mean, Liberland has already signed a couple of treaties with other UN members. An MOU with Haiti. For example, we signed an MOU with Somaliland. That's interesting because Somaliland itself is becoming recognized country. Ethiopia recently recognized Somaliland. UAE has got a couple of deals with Somaliland. And we've got very good relations with places like Colombia, El Salvador, Dominican Republic. Quite a few countries do recognize Liberland passport as well without even diplomatic relations. Also nice to see. So,
as in, does that mean you can enter that country with your Liberland passport and they'll stamp it?
Yes. I mean, for example, Kenya was one of those diplomatic hubs which we used for traveling as well, and that's a good place to exercise your diplomatic passport, for example. But of course, we're mainly using it. 90% of the use is while we're traveling for recognition to some other countries, right? So um, if I'm invited to El Salvador for official diplomatic trip, like we were last time, of course, I'm entering the country on Liberland diplomatic passport.
That's crazy. What a world.
Yeah, well, but think about it, like just the whole concept of passports really started with the First World War. There were no passports before that. People could travel freely around the world.
Yes.
Those things are literally the regulations of the last century, just couple generations ago. Like like my grandmother could remember the time when there were no passports.
Yeah, you could just walk your way from Moscow to Paris, and no one would, they might check you, but they let you go. Wow.
Yeah.
My mind is blown that you're flying to a country with your Liberland passport and they're letting you in based on that document. I understand what you're saying, but that is a mind. I didn't know you were so far. That is a mind-blowing concept. So congratulations. Wow. What was it like the first time you did that?
Well, of course it was quite nice. Anyway, I managed to get into US once also on Liberland passport. I was traveling for the inauguration of Donald Trump, and there was a nice article in the media that I will be attending. And I had invitation directly from the military of United States, like invitation letter. So I just decided I will try to come on Liberland passport, and they stamped it and they let me go through the border check. So that was a very special moment for me. But of course, those are exceptions rather than rule, and it will still take us some time to get Liberland passport recognized by United States in a regular way.
Sorry, here's a question. I'm going to grab my passport. I'm going off screen for a second. Hopefully it's here. Yes. One of my passports, I should say. All right, it's a little worn out, but do you have the little biometric sign on your passports?
No, the diplomatic ones, they don't have it, and we are not using it for a reason. But right now, it's actually better for us not to have the biometric ones.
Okay.
And it's still not international requirement. It's like a bonus, but not a requirement for the passports to have it. So like we don't need it for now.
Okay, interesting.
But we've got the guys and technology to do it anytime it will be required.
Wow, what an adventure you're on. Okay, so just to sort of maybe bring this towards conclusion, in 5 years, or let's say in 2030, what will your country look like? What will the country of Liberland look like?
I've got a very nice vision by Zaha Architects. If you know the company, it's one of the most famous architectural companies in the world. And I quite like their vision. But I want to make sure that Liberland still stays quite a bit of a natural wonder as it is now. I think if you combine this idea and you look into one of the most fun parks for kids in the nature, like we have here, which is called Miraculum in Czech Republic, and you combine it with the Zaha Hadid concept of a super hyper futuristic city, I think we'll be somewhere there if everything goes according to the plan. I hope we will have at least 20 to 30,000 people permanently living in Liberland, and we will have a nice futuristic but also natural kids park and a big playground for everybody to come all around the world. And we will be able to regulate the number of people enjoying Liberland by regulating the daily cost of the visa, which we already did. By the way, if you're coming to Liberland, you're paying a small $5 fee to enter. But if we will have too many people, we'll have to raise that. So we will be able to regulate that on a daily basis, how many people are going to be in Liberland.
Wow. And can you pay for that with Liber dollars? Or Liberland?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, of course.
nice.
Yeah, by the
And
way,
is
one of
Liberland
the
going to have a
bigger,
drone port? Can I fly in there with my?
yes, it's quite important. And we already have an airport there, which could be utilized. It's a natural airstrip in the middle of Liberland. So if you look into the map,
Mm,
uh, between Croatia and Serbia, it's like 12 kilometers Hungarian border, where between the three countries, and you switch to the satellite view, you can already see the names of Liberland streets there, which is pretty exciting. And you can see the couple of companies that have a seat on Jefferson Square. But you can also see a nice airstrip on Google Maps. So
nice.
again, this is a great opportunity for people to get engaged. Now you can get citizenship either by investment, by buying Liberland 5,000 Liberland merits and staking them,
Hmm.
or you can get citizenship if you come to settle Liberland for 25 days. Sometimes we even make exception for 7 days. So depending on your skill set. So if people want to help us, I would let them come for a week and look into how they can be active part of the community, enjoy the nature there. Really beautiful sandy beaches. You wouldn't believe how much gorgeous sandy beach do we have in Liberland. And we're building this treehouse resort so people can also become citizens by investing and buying a treehouse in Liberland right now. But what we need the most is really people actively coming and settling. And that's the most important element right now.
You got a lot of work to do. Sewage, power,
Yeah.
hospitals, police,
Yes,
border
but for
guards.
example, the hospital is already under construction. It's my private endeavor. It's not government organized. It's a nice brick building on the Jefferson Square. We've got already 2 meters of the wall, and I would like to finish it by end of July, so we can start delivering babies in Liberland.
Wow. And if someone is born on Liberland territory, are they automatically a citizen?
Yes.
Nice. So
They
you
don't
got
have
that.
merits, but they just simply don't get the merits, so they cannot be active members of the society.
Hmm.
But if they start paying some taxes over the time, the voluntary taxes, then they can get also full political status.
Wow. Interesting. Hmm.
Yes, I
This is
think
mind blowing. And what's mind blowing is you're not just talking, you've been doing this for a while and pushing it step by step. So it's not some Robert Howling fantasy. It's something that you've been implementing and working on and iterating for a long time, and you stayed on course, which is impressive.
yes. Of course, there is still a lot of work to do, but it'd be great fun to have you, really, Gordon, to come in August, celebrate your birthday, and then help us with some
Oh my gosh.
MCing.
Is it on my birthday? Is it on August 6th?
Well, it's right. Your birthday is just 2 days before that. So it would be great to combine it. I think it would be a special birthday for you as well.
Maybe I party in Belgrade on my birthday and then head on over.
That's also possible. We have a very nice party place, by the way, in Belgrade. Our representative office is being rented by the biggest banks on weekends for parties. So we can
Okay.
organize that for you as well.
Okay, you know what? I think this is great. Unless there's anything else you want to share, I think that's a great note to end on. We'll put the links for everything in the show notes. Okay.
Amazing, amazing. And again, great to be on your show. And I hope to see you soon.
You will. All right. I'll stop the recording. Amazing. Good job. Thank you.